3 women freed after 15 months in captivity. This is the moment on January the 19th that Hamas released the first Israeli captives as part of a complicated and multi-stage ceasefire deal that is holding but has taken months to secure. After hours of delay, later that night Israel eventually released 90 Palestinians from its prisons, most of them women and children. And as the ceasefire took hold, some of the more than 1.9 million Palestinians forcibly displaced by Israel's 15-month bombardment began to return to Rafah, Khan Yunis and Deir al-Balah. So what is expected, according to the deal, to happen next? On January the 25th, Saturday, another 4 Israeli captives are expected to be released in exchange for a second group of Palestinian prisoners. 7 women remain on the list of 33 captives due to be freed in the first phase of the deal. 2 are civilians and 5 are soldiers. Israel says it will release 50 Palestinians for each of the soldiers and 30 for each of the civilians.
It's very complicated. I think it's going to be complicated at every stage. First of all, both sides kind of have their preferences about who's going to be released, right? The Israelis have preferences on which captives are going to be released first, and then Hamas has preferences on which Palestinians are going to be released from those Israeli jails. But also, we haven't always had clarity, and I don't think Hamas has always had clarity on which Israeli captives are still alive and which Israeli captives were killed in the bombing, in Israel's bombing campaign. Now, my understanding, based on the Israeli media reports that I've seen, is that things seem to be squared away for this weekend.
Hamas says once the prisoner exchange is made, Israeli forces are expected to withdraw from Al-Rashid Street, a major route between the north and south running along the coastline on the so-called Al-Bahr axis of the Netzarim corridor. Pedestrians will be allowed to move freely at this point. Israeli forces will allow vehicles to move north across the Netzarim corridor, but members of a private American security company will likely inspect them as they cross that line. Hundreds of thousands of Palestinians are expected to make their way back to what for most will be their destroyed homes. The Rafah border crossing with Egypt is said to reopen to allow in more convoys of desperately needed humanitarian aid. So far, all aid has entered the Strip via the Karam Abu Salim crossing. Israeli forces are not expected to withdraw from the Philadelphia corridor on the Rafah border until day 50 of the deal. Negotiations on that operation are ongoing. Meanwhile, Palestinians in northern Gaza are making preparations for their families returning from the south. Hundreds of thousands are expected, but it all depends on whether this fragile and complicated ceasefire holds. Charles Stratford, Al Jazeera.
Make sure to subscribe to our channel to get the latest news from Al Jazeera.